when we have those periods of time in our life, when we do feel really fragmented and kind of cut off from our purpose, cut off from this best part of us, it can feel very overwhelming and like you're not going to find your way back. And that's like this fragmentation that comes in. And so I believe that when we have really good integration and awareness and, like all of these different parts of us are working together, you'll find that flicker again, and you'll find that way back to this it's really creative and radiant part of you that's just in there, right? It's in there waiting to come out. Hi friends, welcome back. So today we are talking about what do you do when you have this feeling that you've been wasting your life away. Now, this is not a good feeling to kind of wake up one day and to realize like time keeps going by and there's this yearning inside of you to do something more or to go after some of your goals and your dreams, but you haven't been doing it. And so there's almost like this dread of I've been wasting my life. And so today I wanted to kind of dive into that feeling because I think it's something that's pretty universal when we're kind of off track with our goals and with our personal development to allow us to pursue our goals. We get this feeling of like almost this panic. And for some of us, it might set in more at midlife. People talk about like they turn 40 and all of a sudden it's like this midlife crisis, but it can really hit at any time. Just this feeling that I'm wasting time. We know that we're only here on this earth for a limited number of years. And we really don't know how many years that's going to be. It's however many we're given. But we have this time and it is very precious. And so we know it's like in our DNA to know I shouldn't be wasting my life. Shouldn't be wasting time. So what do we do when we have this sense that we have been wasting time? So I want to start with really touching on the goal. And, this is a show about personal development. And so it's all about, reaching that higher version of yourself, pushing yourself to grow mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and physically, all of these different parts of us. And one of the best descriptions or definitions that I've ever heard for self-development and good mental health is this idea of integration. If you really think about how many different little pieces of us there are, we have our physical body. We have the cognitive thinking part of our brain, that prefrontal cortex with our thoughts. We have our emotions, right? And we have that middle part of our brain with the limbic system and our memories. And then we have our behaviors. We have all of these different pieces of ourself, our actual physical body, and having the connection to how our emotions and memories are stored in our body, and that lower part of our brain, how our body has so much information for us just as you go about your day, whether it be alerting you that you're starting to feel tense or happy. There's so much information in our body that we get so disconnected from. So there's all these pieces of us. And so the way that I understand self-development and also good mental health is having integration between all these pieces so that all of these pieces of you work together and they're all known by you, right? You don't have these big areas of your person, of yourself that you're kind of blocked to. And that's like this fragmentation that comes in. And so I believe that when we have really good integration and awareness and, like all of these different parts of us are working together, that that's the highest version of ourself. And at that place, we have this access to the radiance inside of us. And that radiance is something that I believe to be eternal and really to connect us to all of creation. And so when we have this feeling that like I'm wasting my life, I believe it stems from really being fragmented from the different parts that make us and being cut off from our radiance, which is our true self at our core, which when we access that, we are living in the best way possible. We're living in expansion and in integration. And we're, in the words of Joseph Campbell, we're following our bliss. We're doing the things that we're most passionate about, that make us feel the most alive. And so that comes from integration of all these different parts of us. And so if you're at this place where you're feeling the hollowness of like, I'm wasting my life, I'm not doing what I should be doing. And really, I think what you're feeling is, I'm not connected to that best part of me, right? That radiant part of me. I'm disconnected from it. And I'm not living my life with habits and with routines that get me in touch with this part of me on a regular basis. And so how do we do that? How do we just start the process? Because, what I just listed off is a whole bunch of different parts of you. And this process of finding integration and bringing awareness to all these parts of you, that's the work of a lifetime, right? This is why self-development is something that never ends. We're constantly on this journey to keep uncovering parts of us and healing, different traumas and different things that have happened that have wounded parts of us, and just bringing this unity together. And so I have a little list of 3 different things that we can do just in those moments of feeling this hollowness and feeling this dread of like, I'm wasting time, I'm wasting my life. And I think these 3 things, it's almost like a little shortcut to really kind of get you in touch with that radiance at your core. And like I said, Joseph Campbell, who was, a professor of religion, and he studied mythology for many years, really essentially studied what other cultures and other people, what they came up with to answer these big questions of life, such as, how do I live in a way where I feel connected and I feel like I'm not wasting my life? And his answer after studying all of these different people and all of these different mythologies was follow your bliss, right? And so how do we get in touch with that? So here are 3 ways that I think we can really kind of get to the heart of finding our bliss and finding that, that radiance at our core that gives our life meaning, right? This is the opposite of spending your time, kind of doing superficial things or practical things that you need to do, right? You need to make money and provide, and you need to take care of your family. There's all these things, these tasks, and these activities of daily living that we have to do, but that aren't really connected to our deep meaning, and so keep us kind of disconnected. And so the first thing that we can do to start kind of tuning in to our access point to our radiance is to start noticing and listing qualities that you really like about yourself. Now, this can be a tough one because I know we all have our inner critic, and it's so easy to get down on ourselves and to notice our flaws, to notice the things that are quote unquote wrong with us. But then when you're asked like, hey, sit down, list out 12 qualities that you really like about yourself. Now, that's a pretty long list, right? I'm not saying find 3 things that you have 3 qualities that you have that you like about yourself. I'm saying find 10 to 12 qualities. So take some time to really think about this and find 10 to 12 qualities that you really like about yourself, and take it seriously, right? Because we're looking for things that you're naturally good at, or you've been able to cultivate that you notice, right? That you notice about yourself. So for me, a quality that I like about myself is that I get very locked on to a subject or an activity, and I like go all in on something, and I'll read a whole bunch of books, and I will like educate myself, and I'll practice it, and I will just almost like become my own expert on something whenever something catches my interest. It's something that has bothered me in the past because, I can be intense about things, but it's a quality that I've come to really like about myself because I know that I have this curiosity and I have the patience and I put in the time to really learn something all the way. So that's one of the qualities that I have on my list. But, spend time really digging because there's dozens and dozens of qualities about you that when you really think about it, you like these and you rely on these qualities. Okay, the second thing that you're going to do is you're going to remember back to when you were young and before you had limitations in your mind and before you had this idea that there are certain things you can't do or you couldn't accomplish. I want you to remember 5 or 6 things that you dreamed of doing when you were too young to know that there were limitations in life, right? And so what this is going to do is this is going to kind of remind you of your almost like original passions, because it's like there's so much we don't know when we're really young, but also there's so much wisdom that we just have access to about ourselves and about the world because we haven't had, all of these limitations put on us. And so what is it that you really wanted to do when you were too young, before somebody said like, oh, you can't do that. Oh, do you know how hard that would be? And so remember back. And I know for me, I was about 10 or 11 and I was a really big reader. I would read lots of novels. And I remember thinking like, I'm going to write a novel one day. And I've written many first drafts of novels, but that's still something that I haven't accomplished yet. But it's one of those things where, when you're a kid, you don't know all that goes into writing a book or doing whatever it is that you thought of when you were young. So kind of go back in that mindset and just remember, like, where were my passions? Like, what things did I dream of when I was young? Okay, so the third thing is to really follow Joseph Campbell's advice in following your bliss and look for the activities and the qualities that bring you the most happiness. Like, when do you feel the most alive? When do you get those little butterflies of excitement when you're focusing on a certain activity? And I know for myself, writing, when I'm like in creative flow of writing, I get that feeling. And I know like, okay, this is my bliss. Like, I'm following my bliss here. Cooking as well for me, like doing different creative things. Now with, my new profession in mental health, when I'm really in flow state, when I'm with working with a client, getting that feeling of like, oh, this is awesome. I'm so happy. Like, there's so much expansion. So pay attention. Like, when are you the happiest? And if you've been kind of disconnected from this part of you, maybe it's been a while. So you might have to think back to more in your youth, right? More back before life came in and had all of these, demands on you. So just remembering, like, when have I felt the happiest? And pay attention to that, because that's a clue of like, hey, this is a way for me to get in touch with my radiance. And that's a way in for really helping us find that, just that meaning in life, right? When we feel like we're doing what we were meant to do and that what we're doing has some meaning and some purpose, all of a sudden, that fear of I'm wasting my life or I'm wasting time, it just disintegrates, because you know that what you're doing, what you're focusing on really matters. And I think really at the core of it, we know that we have the ability to do work that matters. And so when we don't do it, we have this sense of disappointment in ourselves, and we have just this low feeling. And so this is hopefully inspiring you to really dig around inside and to look for clues as to what qualities about you, what dreams you have, what things you feel the happiest when you're doing them, and start spending time in these activities, right? And if you weren't able to come up with different activities, if you found the list of qualities about yourself that you really feel are great and you feel good about, finding ways to use those qualities on a daily basis. And that's like your first breadcrumb towards finding that bigger purpose, finding that thing that then you feel like, oh my gosh, this is my bliss. This is how I can get into some type of flow state that has meaning for me. So I hope this has been helpful and has just given you something to think about, because when we have those periods of time in our life, when we do feel really fragmented and kind of cut off from our purpose, cut off from this best part of us, it can feel very overwhelming and like you're not going to find your way back. But hopefully these 3 things that we've gone over today, if you spend some time doing these, you'll find that flicker again, and you'll find that way back to this really creative and radiant part of you that's just in there, right? It's in there waiting to come out, and it really wants your time, it wants your attention, and it wants you to spend that focus cultivating and nurturing this best part of you. So a quick recap: make a list of the 10 to 12 qualities that you really like about yourself, and then intentionally utilize those qualities. List out the 5 or 6 things that you dreamt of doing as a kid before anyone got it in your head that you couldn't do things that you wanted to do, right? What did you dream of? What were some of those passions that you knew instinctively, like, this is a field for me, like this is something that I would be, have a lot of meaning and feel really good about doing? And then pay attention to, the aspects of your personality and the activities that you do where you feel the happiest. If you've done anything where you kind of felt like you were in this flow state, or you had these little excited butterflies, like that's a clue to you that this is something that can really help get you in touch with that radiance that's at your core. So thank you so much for watching. I hope that you liked this. Please like, subscribe, or share this channel with a friend. And I will be back next week with another message.